special guest views from the stands.
Welcome in, Kelly. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing so good. It's great to be with you guys. You're so much fun.
Oh, well, thank you. Really appreciate that. And I had to first off apologize. I know we tried to reschedule a couple different times with you, so I'm really happy this actually worked out this time. So thank you very much for working with us.
We made it.
There we go. Well, we like to start everything off with you're the star of the show for the moment right now. So let's go ahead and let the people know what you have going on and what you're all about.
Yeah, I had a really unusual experience as a young woman, where I found myself unexpectedly in the middle of Muhammad Ali's entourage as a teenager. Spent a number of years traveling with Muhammad, and that shaped me in almost every part of my life since. I went on to work with athletes as a speechwriter and in causes that were important to them. I married an NFL player, and later in life, we just felt called to really use the experiences that we'd had in our life to advocate for athletes' brain health, and particularly that of fighters, where the resources and support is pretty non-existent, and yet the long impact of a boxing career is really incomparably difficult. So here we are, brain health advocates, and I've recently completed a memoir on my coming of age years, of which being a part of Muhammad's Circle was a big part of that.
And all I do is host a podcast. So, wow, that's impressive right there. So we got to start right from the top up there. So Muhammad Ali, how did that even happen? How, a lot of the younger generation as well, that they only seen YouTube videos and never got a chance to actually see him fight or any of that kind of stuff. So maybe explain a little bit more who Muhammad was and how did you end up getting involved with Muhammad Ali?
It's still shocking to me how many young people don't really understand who Muhammad is, because yes, Muhammad was the greatest boxer of all time and 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, but he was so much more than that. And he was an incredible humanitarian, an incredible civil rights leader. He made such a difference for really all athletes, because he led the way in ushering athletes into a much larger platform than sports themselves. And, we've all heard, what is it, like shut up and dribble or something is the line. We've all heard those kinds of comments.
Exactly.
And there are people that really want an athlete to stay in their lane. But Muhammad had no lane. He had his purpose, he knew, was so much greater than his sport. He had an incredible gift as an athlete, and he knew he could use that for something much more important. So, was your question, who is Muhammad? Or was your question, how did I end up with Muhammad?
A little bit of both, honestly. It's just an interesting story. Just reading over your bio before we got on the show and stuff. Like, it's all you right now. Just lead the way on that. It's really interesting. And how did you end up meeting him as well?
Yeah, so I was 13 and I was living in Cleveland, Ohio, and doing some very, mid-market modeling, and had aspirations of acting or something like that. Basically, I was a girl who didn't feel important, didn't feel special, and wanted to find a way to, make myself feel worthy. And so those were the paths that I was looking at that point in time. And my agency in Cleveland sent me to New York. And my mom and I were in the lobby of the Plaza Hotel in New York, and Muhammad was also staying there. He was there with his entourage. I had left my modeling portfolio in the back of a taxi cab. I was crying in the lobby, and Muhammad did what Muhammad does, what Muhammad did through his entire life, which is looks at whoever God puts in his path and says, what does this person need, and what can I do to help them? And Muhammad saw me hurting, sent Gene Kilroy, his business manager, across the lobby to find out what was wrong and what we needed. And that was the start. Gene had a background with MGM Studios. He vowed to help me not only replace my portfolio, but get me connected to some career opportunities. And they started inviting us to things. And in a very short time, it stopped being an invitation and it was just an assumption that where they went, we would go. And so by the time I was 14, and we were traveling pretty regularly with them.
That is amazing, and how fate happens sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's still odd to me. When my daughter, when our oldest daughter turned 14, I said, what was my mother thinking? Like,
Yeah.
because never in a million years would I look at my teenage children and think, oh yeah, they need to be traveling, you know, headed to Vegas, headed to Australia, headed here or there with some athlete in his entourage. Like, it seemed crazy, but at the time it felt like a career opportunity, but it felt so much bigger than that. It felt like we just have the opportunity to be in the orbit of such an extraordinary human. And we jumped on it, and it was an adventure. My mom tended
I can imagine you probably would have felt even worse if you didn't take the opportunity. There would have been so many things looking back in life, like, why didn't I just take that? You know, if it fails, it fails. But who else can say I got to hang out with Muhammad Ali all the time?
Yeah, and that first day when we met, I thought that that's what had happened. Oh, I got to meet this boxing star. Isn't that cool? I had no idea that it would consume, that one meeting would consume the next many years of my life and really shape and form me in the things that I care about and the way I see people and the way I see myself. But it did.
So the title of the memoir was Little Trouble, correct?
Yeah.
And I was reading a little bit about that. That's an interesting nickname that he gave you, correct?
He did. He started out calling me, my mom Trouble 1 and me Trouble 2. And then I just became Little Trouble. So at first when he said that, I felt, it was kind of like validation. Like, okay, I've got a nickname. That means we belong. We're part of the group. Yeah. It was special to me. And as I wrote the book and saw some things differently than I had seen them as I lived through them, it came to have some different meanings than I understood. I see a lot of the ways that Muhammad looked out for me and protected me and tried to protect my innocence. It was an impossible feat, but he did his best. And, I see that Trouble was not just a random nickname. There was a lot of trouble around, and I found some of it. But
in a day of social media being so great, back in the day, it wasn't like that. Being a part of his entourage, seeing all the good stuff that he did for people, what he tried to be an advocate for just human beings in general. How well do you think that he would use social media and his platform today to just do all the great things that he did?
You know, it's funny because he's all over social media now. At least, okay, my algorithm, because they know what I'm interested in. But there's a ton of Muhammad there now. So he, as humble as he truly was, which I think some people don't believe because of his just PR bravado, but as humble as he was, he did love attention and loved people, and he knew how to work it. He was a master. So I can't imagine that he wouldn't have really done great things with it. And yeah, the fact that he was the most well-known face, the most well-known name in the world without social media, worldwide in the corners of, all corners of the earth, is pretty incredible. Like, now it's easy to have a large audience. I did a podcast with someone in Nigeria today. So, it's easy awesome. To reach the world. But then it was not so easy. And yet there was something really incredible. And everyone had a heart for Muhammad. I mean, there was a time when he was not loved by all.
Mm-hmm.
But,
That's what happens with greatness. That's what happens.
We have Kelly Baldwin, author of the memoir Little Trouble. Man, so there's he's not the only athlete that had a platform or anything like that. What would you say an athlete that reminds you kind of what Muhammad stood for, what he's going for now? Do you have any kind of athletes that you think that carry that torch right now?
I mean, I don't think anyone comes close, but I know that, certainly LeBron has done great things with his school in Akron, Ohio. Honestly, okay, so this is not really the answer to your question, but it's the answer I'm going to give you. So I feel that one of the biggest problems we have in sports today is that athletes think about today and don't think about the future. And they feel like they're invincible. They're young. I mentioned that my husband played in the NFL, 7 years in the NFL. And when it comes time for a collective bargaining agreement, if the current active players were able to think 10, 20, 30 years ahead, they would have much different priorities, right? But they think about what's best for them in their next season. They think about their contract, and they don't think about the long-term health of those legends who paved the way for them. So what I would really love to see in all sports, but in boxing particularly, sometimes you could have a $50 million, $100 million purse. Give 1%, 5% to a fund that would help retired fighters with primarily their brain health, but also just with living expenses or any other needs that they may have, because so many of them are living in poverty and have tremendous cognitive decline.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely well said and very thoughtful as well. I think that would be a fantastic fund. You mentioned about brain health, so you are segueing into it right there. So, how did you get involved in that, and what do you have going on with the brain health? Because that's an extremely important thing, especially boxing, the sport that you were talking about as well. Any kind of fighting, really.
Yes, Muhammad always talked to me about finding your purpose, and as a teen, I think I felt a lot of pressure to follow the expectations that others had for me, measure up to how people wanted to judge me, do the things that other people thought were important. But Muhammad really stressed, don't worry about what other people think about you, worry about what you think about yourself. Find your purpose. You have a purpose, something special. You have a beautiful heart. I know you're going to do something important. And I feel like the way I ended up caring about athletes' brain health was just by opening my eyes. I feel like I was led into a pretty unique combination. I don't think there are a lot of women who have a background in boxing. Boxing is a male-dominated sport, far less so. There are great women athletes in boxing today, but the business end of boxing, et cetera, it's still a male-dominated sport. And then to have a husband who's an NFL veteran, those are two arenas where there's tremendous concern, and rightly so, about the health of the athlete's brain. And my husband had worked with an organization called Athlete's Brain for a period of time. And, I'm in NFL wives groups and family organizations, and he's in Players Association, retired players associations, et cetera. And fear of CTE, talk of brain health, it's very prevalent. It's very common. The wives on the NFL Wives Facebook group, you're constantly seeing concussion updates and CTE fears. And my husband's doing this. Is this just normal anger, or is this the beginning of something that could be terrifying? No. Well, CTE can lead to murder, can lead to suicide. It can, it can be very, very serious. So all these things just were, my life led to them. And if I opened my eyes, I see that I'm probably supposed to do something about this because I'm uniquely here at this intersection. Either one, a background in boxing or being an NFL wife, either one of those could certainly have opened my eyes to it. But the combination of the two, I'm like, I'd have to be blind or an idiot to ignore that I'm supposed to do something about this.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I really wanted to touch up on any specifics that you can really give when it comes to brain health for anybody that's watching out there, or for the people that are going to watch it later on. We got athletes that really tune in, and they're either currently playing or they still play now recreationally, but I'm sure that they would want any tips or any advice on what they can do to have some good brain health.
Yeah. The biggest tip for an active athlete is actually something that's very simple, and that is hydration. And that might sound too simple, but because the brain is largely fluid, when you are dehydrated, your brain is far more susceptible to injury. And I saw a demonstration once where they used a waffle. If you have a waffle that's like toasted and really, hard waffle, it'll just crack. But if it's wet or, thawed, but not yet toasted, I'm talking about like a Lego Mayego kind of waffle or whatever.
Yeah.
It's soft, it's pliable. If you hit it, it'll just, move and bounce back as opposed to cracking. So our brain is very similar. And when you have sports where athletes try to cut weight, so boxing, wrestling, I don't know, all the sports where athletes need to make weight. And maybe it's not that there's a weight limit. You could be a heavyweight and not have an actual weight limit, but promoters may give you a weight limit. You get a signing bonus if you come in under 220, you get, something like that. So sports where athletes are trying to make weight really lead to chronic dehydration, and particularly dehydration right prior to a fight or the activity. And it takes more. It's not like you can weigh in and then just drink and it's back. It takes a few days for your hydration to recover. So that would be the most simple advice that anybody could make a change in. You need the buy-in from coaches, trainers, and promoters, though, because the athlete can say, okay, I'm not going to cut weight, but it will impact their career in many cases. So that would be the simplest thing that would apply to current athletes.
Yeah. So glad I try to drink a gallon a day.
I don't know the specifics, and I don't want to give that, but just be spitting up and starving yourself and not drinking because you're trying to make weight.
Yeah, I watch a lot of MMA, and they have that you can see sometimes that if they're really close to cutting weight, they'll just sit in the corner and just constantly spit just to get those couple ounces out. Because you're exactly right. Like that holds on, and you can't just replace that. There's some people that fall out on the stage, and it's really, that is great advice, actually.
Go ahead. Easily corrected.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of martial arts, I was looking as well. So you got inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame, or what was that all about? That's interesting, because boxing background, martial arts, how did that all transpire?
So boxing is considered by many to be the original martial art.
Okay.
And my husband and I were, honored to be inducted, surprised, but honored, because they recognize people who excel in the sport as athletes, but also who support the sport and the athletes. And when they first reached out to us and said, you're going to be inducted, we were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not martial artists. And then they explained that you are contributing significantly. And we wanted to honor that. And we agreed to it largely. First of all, we knew it would be a fun party, but also we thought, hey, if it helps expand our platform and allows us to reach more people to be able to help them, then, we'll do whatever it takes. So we went along with it. It was a lot of fun. This coming in about, I don't know, are we live on this or no?
Yeah, we are live. Yes.
Okay. So in like 10 days, we're going to the National Boxing Hall of Fame in Montebello, California. And
that'd be awesome.
We're just attendees. We're not inductees to this, but it'll be also a lot of fun. And we are in conjunction with a biopharmaceutical company that we work with, or biotherapeutic company that we work with, called the Crowley Center, and they have a product and a program called Renewing Athletes' Lives. And we are giving to the silent auction there a year's worth of exosome therapy, which is a stem cell derived product from umbilical cords. So it's age 0 stem cells, and the athletes administer it to themselves through a nasal spray.
Wow.
And it deals with the inflammation in the brain and allows the brain cells to begin to regenerate. And the trial, it's beginning to, the first athletes, they were doing it for 100 NFL athletes. And my husband played, his quarterback when he was with the Browns was Bernie Kosar, who you may know of. So Bernie asked my husband if he'd like to be a part of this. And he said yes. And then he said, hey, let's see if they might give some of these 100 spots that are intended for NFL veterans to fighters. And sure enough, they were agreeable to doing that. And we've been able to enroll a number of former world champions in this study. And phase 1 is done. Some people are entering phase 2 now. And at this National Boxing Hall of Fame for the silent auction, we're giving a year's supply to a fighter. And I'm excited, very excited.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Wow.
Yeah, please give us a post on what happens. That you're more welcome to come back on and tell us more.
Right.
That's amazing work that you're doing on there. Kelly, I gotta give you a lot of props here too. Not only are you the first Hall of Famer that we've ever had on here, but you're also the first female that we've had on here. So you are setting the bar. You're setting the bar extremely high. Extremely high. So yeah, that is awesome.
Let's hear it for the ladies.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Ladies' night is Friday night, why not? But so we're gonna do a couple rapid fire questions for you real quick. What is your favorite sport?
I've got to say basketball, which I know is crazy because we've been talking about boxing and football, but basketball is so fun. I was a basketball mom and it's just a lot of fun.
Okay, fair enough. All right. What's your favorite team then? Are you college or pro?
I got to say the Nuggets.
The Nuggets. Okay. Not bad.
Nice. I'm an Aaron Gordon fan.
T-Mike is a Heat fan and I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan. So both of us are sitting in the same exact position watching it from the couch,
Do you think that already with Jokic and the way that he's playing, do you think he can be submitted as one of the best offensive players of all time?
I'd say yes.
Right?
Yes. He's amazing.
Right.
And his attitude is hilarious.
He's up for it. So who's your MVP vote this year?
I don't have one. Sorry. I should have been prepared. I should have been
prepared. Answer.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Wemby,
we put you on the spot for it.
Wemby is a good pick.
Okay.
That's a smart pick. That's who I picked as well. So, Kelly, you're a very smart woman, obviously, then. All right. So before we let you go real quick, Kelly, so we wanted to ask you a couple of things. If Ali was here with us today, what do you think his message would be? And what would you think he would think of everything we have going on right now?
I saw Muhammad's wife in October in Boston and his widow, his last wife, Lonnie. And we talked about this and she said how, I don't know if it's, you know what? I was about to say something political and maybe that's not appropriate for your show. So
you can shoot it. You can shoot it straight. We like that.
She said that when Muhammad passed away 10 years ago this year, he was very happy with the direction that the country was in. And, race relations were also always something that were very near and dear to his heart. Yeah. So, and very personal. And so he was happy and she felt like he would be very heartbroken. She misses him every day as we do, but she's happy that he's not here to see some of the ugliness that is happening in that way. So that's one thing. And then the Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky has started the Muhammad Ali Index, which is an effort to promote compassion, and they measure the compassion in different cities. And I think that that's such a great way to continue Muhammad's legacy is by focusing on compassion. And so I think his message would be to have compassion on one another and on yourself.
Definitely.
I wish there was more, outlets that promoted things like that, because I had no idea anything about that. So I'm really glad you was able to say something about that. But it's simple kindness acts that can make anybody just feel a little bit better. So I think that's something that any time of the year, politically, whatever you got going on, anybody just be kind. It sounds like that's what he wanted you to be. Be kind and respect everybody. So I think that's just an easy message, no matter what area you're in. To go off of. So I totally agree with that. I think that's really awesome that he has, an organization like that.
Yes. You should check it out.
Definitely will. Definitely.
I want to see if you throw us a bone here, but any crazy story that you had when you were younger with Muhammad Ali and being in his entourage?
Oh gosh, I have 1,000 crazy stories and
let's go.
I wrote 36 chapters about it. Oh gosh.
Oh, speaking of which, where can we find the book before we forget here? Where can we find the book?
I'm in search of a literary agent, so it'll be a while. It'll be a while, but I would love to come back when it comes out.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh. Well, on a sad on the sad side, I remember after Muhammad fought Larry Holmes. Well, I'll tell you both a sad and a funny thing about Muhammad.
There you go. I like it.
So that night we had an after party, as we always had an after party, even though he lost the fight badly. And I went into the bathroom, and in the bathroom, it was in a hotel room, and I could hear people in the other room, and Muhammad was not there. Muhammad was in bed. And I could hear some of the guys in the entourage saying, "Did you bet against him?" And somebody said, "Hell no." And they said, "Would you admit it if you did?" And then he said, "Hell no." Ha ha ha. And then many of them laughed. And to me, that felt like confirmation that some of those guys bet against Muhammad. And that really hurt me. Yeah. But the next morning he was appearing on Good Morning America. And he had to be, because we were in Vegas, so because of the time difference, he had to be there at like 4:30 in the morning or something. And I knew if I was going to see him before we left town, that was going to be the only opportunity. And it was important to me that I see him after the fight before we left town. And I got up and I went to the other hotel where his shoot was. And I had, sometimes when I don't want to do my hair, I just put it in a ponytail like this. And I had my hair in a ponytail, and I had put little sponge curlers in my hair to curl my ponytail to be pretty. And I get there, and I had forgotten to take the sponge curler out of my hair. And Muhammad's, reaching around and like tugging on my ponytail. And I'm like, oh gosh. And I'm so embarrassed. And he says, "Well, you need to go back to your hotel anyhow." I said, "I don't need to go back to my hotel. I can just take it out." He's like, "No, you need to go back to your hotel because you need to wash that makeup off your face. Only clowns need all that makeup. Pretty people like you and me, we don't need all that makeup," something like that. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And the thing that was so special about that was like part of the reason, or the real reason I think that I felt compelled to get up and go there at 4:00 in the morning, was because I was hurt that people had bet against him. I knew he was hurting, and I kind of wanted to show up for him. And I'm a teenage girl, but I kind of wanted to show up for him. And on the way there, I was thinking about, what am I going to say to Muhammad? How can I encourage Muhammad? He's always the one encouraging me. How can I encourage Muhammad? And thought hard about what to say. And then sure enough, I get there, and instead he's playing and encouraging me, playing with an encouraging me. Yeah. But I have that in my diary. I have a stack of diaries from those years, which I'm so, so grateful for, because I have conversations and all kinds of stuff written down that are really special.
It sounded like you were using his own thing too, kindness, and you were trying to go there for him, and he still found a way to be there for you. So that's awesome.
He flipped it back on you.
Right.
Again and again. Yeah, you can't out compassion him.
All right, I got one more for you real quick here. And so I know we always talk about he's the GOAT. I think there's not really much debate on it really anymore, but I still think, maybe explain a little bit his athleticism and how in shape he was and how fast, and maybe because a lot of people younger especially have only get to like the YouTube, if you will, and don't really get to experience it. So like, how awesome was he to actually be there? So I'm sure you were there for sparring sessions. And
I was there for a lot of sparring sessions, and he was beautiful to watch. Like, he was just a beautiful human. We would joke about being pretty, but he was just a beautiful human with this beautiful physique built for his sport. And his quickness was amazing. His jab was amazing. His footwork was amazing. He could dance and make it look really graceful and pretty, make a brutal, violent sport actually look beautiful. And I think the Cleveland Williams fight, if anybody wants to YouTube or Google a video from an old fight, Cleveland Williams fight is not a fight that got as much attention as, say, a Frazier or Foreman battle, but was prime Muhammad, because Muhammad went to jail for being a conscientious objector and to the Vietnam War, and was stripped of his title and did not fight for what would have been the prime of his career. So we don't even know how great he could have been as an athlete. But by the time he came back, he was a little older and a little slower. So go back to like Cleveland Williams and be ready to be dazzled.
Be just amazed.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, you set the bar extremely high, and we're extremely thankful for you coming on the show with us. Kelly, you're more than welcome any other time to come on. I would really love for you to come on and tell us how that boxing Hall of Fame thing went and the stem cell research that you guys were doing and all the brain stuff. Anytime you want to come back on, you're more than welcome. That was fantastic. So check out Kelly out. How can anybody find you and follow you guys' journey?
I have a website, kellyrileybaldwin.com. Is my name there? It is. So just like that, kellyrileybaldwin.com. And on that is all of my social media links. I'm busy embarrassing myself on TikTok regularly, trying to build an author platform.
So are we.
Same.
It gets a little easier the more you do it, but here we
100%.
are.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear from people and have them sign up so that when my book is published, I can let them know. That'd be great. If anybody's interested in donating to Athlete Brain Health, I have a lot of organizations I work with. So
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Well,
Love
one
the
more
fact that you
round of
came on.
applause.
Thank you for coming on.
you
Thank
guys,
very much. It was great having you on, and we will definitely get a hold of you soon. And please keep us posted on everything you've got going on. Really appreciate it.
thank you so much. I look forward to coming back.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks very much.
Bye.